minutes in the start just to introduce ourselves and the conference, and the program chairs will give you some information before the first talk. So we are the general chairs. My name is Jiaxin, and I'm an associate professor at NTNU.
My name is Boy. I'm a researcher with TNO in the Netherlands.
Yeah. So if you have any questions or if you want to talk to us during the conference, this is how we look like. And well, Boy used to be at NTNU, so this conference is mainly organized by our research group there, and we have technology lab. And you will see a few of our members also in the conference, including Lotta and Emil and Dan that you met already, which helped out with the registration. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us during the conference and talk to us about our work.
Yeah, so we're very happy to bring you all to Reuros, and we know that some of you might be asking, why is this conference in Reuros, which is fair. The reason is that it's a really beautiful town that we wanted to show off to the world. And as some of you remember, and as some of you were present, we hosted Eurocrypt in Trondheim a few years back. And we were very excited to host another conference, but we were not so excited to host the same conference again. So something new had to be done. And because PKC is much smaller than Eurocrypt, we also had the opportunity now to take you to a cooler place that has some awesome things to show for itself, but that would not be able to host the large conferences of the ICR. And then Reuros was a natural place to go. It's, well, Sharon will talk a bit more about it, but it's a really lovely town, and we really hope that you will enjoy the conference, of course, the academic and scientific parts, but we also hope that you will have some time to wander around, enjoy the scenery, enjoy the food, and enjoy the beautiful town that we are in.
So this is photos from Reuros, and I'm sure you'll get the chance to explore a bit during the conference. It's a small mining town initially, and there's mines for guided tours. There's the guided tour that some of you will attend, and all these kind of wooden houses, really old, charming, small, cozy place. With roughly 4,000 people living here. And it's also famous for its winter Christmas market in December. So if you ever get a chance to go back, choose the first week or weekend of December. That's really lovely. So even if you're not attending the guided tour during the conference, please take some time and just walk around and check out the town center and explore it. It's really lovely. It's also on the UNESCO Heritage list, so this is really one of the kind of protected areas in Norway, which they want to stay like this for people to be able to come here and explore and look into the history of small towns in Norway. So really, we encourage you to spend some time after the talks, if you have time, during the free afternoon, maybe after the last conference day, if you're still around for a bit, really take some time to walk around and explore.
And maybe most importantly, it's also where Home for Christmas was filmed on Netflix. Before we continue, we would like to take a moment to thank the organizations that have sponsored this conference. We are really grateful to them. With the conference fee that you've all paid, we can, of course, cover most of the food and staying here. But the sponsors are what enable us to, for example, offer the social program, to make student stipends possible so that also people early in their career have the opportunity to attend this conference, and to generally lower the price of the registration fee. So we would like to have a big hand of applause for all of our sponsors. At the Research Council, at the silver level TII, en at de bronze level PQC, DIGDIR, Digitaliseringsdirectoraat en Thales. Really, those of you that are here, thank you very much for making this week possible and showing well, some cool crypto and some cool part of Norway.
Furthermore, some statistics. So the program chairs will give you more numbers in a second. But there will be 60 papers presented at this conference, and we have 105 attendees in total. This is as many as in Sydney last year. So I guess, like, if you look at percent-wise, number of people in this town right now is actually making a difference. So we're really happy that so many want to take the trip to Reuros. And also the division is 57 regular, 48 students. offer 35 student presenters free registration, and we also provided free hotel stay for all 8 applicants for student stipend. So this is something we gave to everyone who applied. Some practical information. So we're going to stay here for the whole conference and all the talks. So if anything happens, there's an emergency exit right next to us there. And if you're in the common area outside, you can either go up the stairs where you came down, or there's an exit also on the right side here. The coffee and snacks will be served upstairs next to the registration. So coffee is available whenever you want, so just go and grab a coffee whenever. And the snacks we'll have in the afternoon. So after the lunch there will be a session, and then there will be a snack later on before the final session every day, with a variety of local Norwegian food. You already got the badges, but there was some delivery issues in general for merch and lanyards, so they will come later and we will announce it when it's ready. So just bear with us, but we have some exciting gifts for you in whenever that arrives. I mentioned Røros Town Center, so it's worth exploring, and it's just a 10-minute walk from the hotel, maybe 15 if you want to go all the way to the end. So it's really close. So it might be too short for the coffee break, but it might be close enough for in between talks and social program. And the facilities at Røros Hotel, I guess most of you are staying here, so if you like, there's also a swimming pool with the indoor and outdoor pool and a sauna, so that's worth checking out while you're here. And otherwise there is the bar that some of you already tested last night, so that will be here after the conference program, so you can hang out there if you want and don't want to walk downtown. For the welcome reception, this will be tonight at 7 in the restaurant, so where you have the breakfast. And there will be some food and snack, and then for drinks you will use the 3 bongs that you got for registration to cover that, and if you want more you're happy to help yourself. But 3 unit is included. And for the conference dinner, that will also be in the restaurant on Wednesday at 7. Okay, so of course we need access to the internet, and it's very easy. It's conference Wi-Fi and there's no password. So that should work out nicely. It might be that this Wi-Fi is not working that well on the hotel part. So there's Røros Hotel Wi-Fi as well. So either one should be fine. And they're both open. Then for the free afternoon activities. So the guided tour, you meet at the reception at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And the guide will meet you there and we will tag along. For the beer tasting, you have 2 options. You can either meet in the reception 15 minutes earlier, and we will walk together to Kaffestue, which is the place where we will have the beer and the food. But if you are wandering around and checking out the town in advance, you're also free to meet us at 7 sharp at Kaffestue. So I will remind you about this tomorrow, but this is the place we're going to be, and you can either join us there or you can follow us from the hotel. From the bus, so some of you took the bus to Røros yesterday. So on Thursday the bus is initially set to leave during lunchtime. And this was our best guess based on international flights leaving from Trondheim Airport a few hours after the conference. But we don't know which flight you're on. So if you really need to make a flight quite quickly after the conference and need the bus to leave as initially planned, please email us and let us know so that we know and can notify the driver that this is a flight you need to make. Otherwise, we might delay the bus a bit if no one are in a hurry, because then you get to enjoy the lunch a bit more time after the last talk on Thursday. So please let us know which flight you're on. Also, we're happy to drop you off in Trondheim instead. So if you want to sign up for the bus, but you didn't initially because you thought you were going to the airport but you wanted to go downtown, please let us know and we will also organize a stop in Trondheim downtown on the way. Okay, so in short, email us if you want to be on the bus Wednesday and let us know which flight you're on.
Yeah. Then a bit on the weather. So as you know, it is spring here. As you have experienced already, that can mean many things. So it's been around 0 tonight. It's gonna freeze a bit more the coming days. It's gonna progressively get colder. So we hope that everyone brought layers and will dress accordingly. And also, as you might have noticed, even though it's still early in the season, the sunrise is already quite early and the sunset is already quite late. So we hope that everyone will enjoy this. I hope that everyone will enjoy going outside and get some mountain air and really enjoy the really nice weather that this town has to offer. But if you want to take pictures, then bear in mind that it will be a bit cloudy the coming days. Lastly, we want to remind everyone that the ICR has a code of conduct for conferences, which is in place here as well. We would like this conference to be, or we require that this conference is a place that is completely free of harassment, of discrimination, and of other unpleasant things. So please, we ask everyone to respect this, to respect each other, and to treat each other nicely. And if there is anything you experience during this conference that is in violation of this, or that you feel you want to discuss with anyone, then you can always approach either us or the ICR Code of Conduct Liaison or President, whose contact information you can find on the website, or you can contact any member of the Ethics Committee of the ICR, who I don't think are present here right now. Is there anyone from the Ethics Committee? No. So, but if there is anything, feel free to approach us, anything at all. And if you feel uncomfortable talking to us about it, then contact someone in the ICR, and they will be happy to help you and listen to you and find a solution for the problem. And with that, we hope you will enjoy this conference very much, and we give the word to the program chairs.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tibor Jager. Together with Jiaxin, I'm a program co-chair of this conference, and it's a great pleasure to finally see you all here at the conference. I hope I'm not violating the code of conduct already by harassing the authors of papers, or the speakers actually, of presentations who have not yet uploaded their presentation for today's talk, so please do this. Yeah? If you don't, then we might have to prepare the slides for you, and trust me, nobody really wants that. Yeah? Okay, some statistics about PKC. So we received a record number of submissions, 199, by 499 different authors, which is slightly disturbing numbers because I'm afraid that we missed one submission and maybe one author somewhere. But yeah, so 5 papers had to be desk rejected for violations of the call for papers, ridiculously margins, and non-anonymous submissions, and so on. Then about 1/3 of the papers had or was early rejected, and at the end we ended up accepting 60 papers, even though we have only 58 slots for talks at this conference. So we had to merge 4 papers into 2 talks. Yeah, so this is roughly the acceptance rate that we aimed for at the beginning, but it also tells us that this is, I mean, the program is super packed. And this is also the reason why we have to ask for the slides before the presentations. Yeah, so we have really a very tight schedule, like 20-minute slots, and there was not so much time, for fiddling around with the technology and so on. So this all has to be set up properly. What is also good and bad news at the same time is that we had more acceptable papers that were submitted than we could accept. So there was a handful of papers that very unfortunately we had to reject because they had slightly less support than other papers. But of course, it's also a good sign that there is so much very good research going on in public key cryptography. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, I would like to thank the 72 PC members and the 5 area chairs, the 170 sub-reviewers, and in total there have been more than 600 reviews, and the number of reviews per PC member was between 9 and 10. Okay, some more statistics. So there were not so many surprising statistics here except for this one. Yeah, if you look at the most frequent words in titles of accepted papers, then we get this list here. And the most frequent words in titles of rejected papers are this list here. And I find it a bit surprising that they contain almost exactly the same words in almost exactly the same order, with one exception. This is multi and threshold. The takeaway message of this is if you work in threshold cryptography, maybe try to sell it as multi-user cryptography, where a certain number of users is able to decrypt or sign. Yeah? But don't be distracted, and please continue to work on threshold schemes, because this is an amazing area. Yeah, here are the 5 areas. So we had one area, advanced public key encryption, which was chaired by Stefano Tesaro. This area received 41 submissions. Advanced signatures and proof systems by Miyako Okubo with 44 submissions. Mathematics of public key crypto by Alex Mai with 28 submissions. MPC and Friends with 40 submissions by Claudio Orlandi. And real-world primitives and protocol with 43 submissions by Miha Belave. So what we can also see here is that basically the submissions are roughly equally distributed across all the areas, except for mathematics of public key cryptography. But here we should also take into account that math papers can be pretty intimidating, and I'm really glad that Alex was there to take care of these difficult papers. And with that, I would like to hand over to Jiaxin.
Thanks. So I'm another program co-chair, together with Thibault. So we want to sort of announce there's 2 awards from this conference. One is the Best Paper Award. The other one is Test of Time Award. So the award committee for the best papers are basically our area chairs, and together with Thibault. So there are Mihir Balar and also Alexander Mai, Miyako Okubo, Claudio Orlandi, and Stefano Tesaro, and Thibault Jager. That's the Best Paper Award committee. And the committee for Test of Time Award is Masayuki Abe, Angelos Kies, myself, and Eduardo Pesiciti, and Qiang Tang. The award for the best paper we have given to the following paper, which is Prism, Simple and Compact Identifications and Signatures from Large Prime Degree Isogenies. And they are from, please excuse me if I pronounce your name not in the correct way. They're from Andrea Basso, Giacomo Bohint, Walter Castro, and Maria Cotterio Santos, Richardo Invenici, Antoni Leros, Luciano Mainot, Frederic Verkauter, and Benjamin Wesolowski. The Test of Time Awards, we have 2 papers. The first one is signing a linear subspace signature schemes for network coding, which is from PKC 2009. It is a paper from Dan Bonin and David Freeman, Jonathan Katz, and Brent Waters. And the second paper is also awarded to PKC 2009. This is an accumulator based on bilinear maps and efficient revocations for anonymous credentials. It is a paper from Jan Kaminic, Marco Kovacs, and Claudio Sorinter. So we will have our award ceremony in the conference dinner. And unfortunately, the offer for the Test of Time Award, they were not here, but we will. But they have made some video about this, so we will play the video on Thursday. So that's all I want to say about the award. And we also have our invited talk, which is given by Mihir Balar. We are very thankful that he flies from the US to here. So the invited talk will be on Tuesday at 3 p.m. And we want to, we as a program co-chair, we want to thank all the PC members for their work, and also all the sub-reviewers, and also the hard work from the area chairs. in particular for the general chair and the team in NTNU that they are supporting us for these events and to take care of many of the practical helps, and a special thanks for them. And also the committees for the Best Paper Award and also Test of Time Award, and also for all the authors who make their submissions to PKC. I think at this point it really fit into the Norwegian phrase, which is called tusen takk, right, 1,000 thanks. So please correct my Norwegian pronunciation. So thanks a lot for all of you for coming here and all the people that got involved in this event. So, I hope I did not miss anything. Thanks. So now we move to the first sessions, which would be about MPC and Friends. So we can start setting up the settings.
And there are some seats here in the front row left, and they're so super comfortable. So maybe you want to sit down.
I have the microphone here, I think. Hey, is the microphone working? Yeah? Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, now I hear it. Cool.
So
yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Right. So I'm the session chair for the first sessions, which is about MPC and Friends. So we have 3 talks. And the first talks is non-interactive distributed point functions. So this is a joint work from Elad Boyd, Lalita Devastat, and Sasha Seban-Schreiber.
Yeah.
So Sasha will give us the talk.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so this is, I'll present our work on non-interactive distributed point functions, which is joint work with Elad, Lali, and yeah. Cool. So let's decompose the title a bit. What is a point function? So a point function is a function p that is parameterized by an index t. And on input x, if x equals t, it outputs 1. And if x is equal to anything not equal to t, it outputs 0. So if we evaluate this point function on all the inputs in the domain, we'd get 0 everywhere except for the input that matches the parameter t. And that would be 1. And distributed point function carries this idea over to a 2-party setting, where Alice and Bob get keys ka and kb, and they can use these keys to locally evaluate this point function, but instead of getting the output of the point function, they get secret shares of the point function. And so what this means is if they combine their local evaluations, then the sum of their local secret shares will be equivalent to the evaluation of the point function on the entire domain. And so they would obtain the one hot vector where it will be 1 at the secret index, because Alice and Bob will not know what the parameter of the point function is. And typically, distributed point functions require a trusted setup, where the setup has the parameter of the point function t, and then outputs the keys to each party, which they can then use to evaluate. Distributed point functions have many applications, especially in recent years. There have been many more practical applications. So in particular, they can be used for private information retrieval and private search. They can be used for distributed oblivious RAM, pre-processing and multi-party computation. There's a lot of follow-up work for this application, and more efficient, secure computation more generally. So they're very important, but this trusted setup often is a problem. And so over the years, there's been one protocol in particular that eliminates the need for a trusted setup. And so this is what the protocol looks like. You don't have to really understand the details, but it's a protocol of Dornish and Shalat. But the important thing here is that it requires log n rounds, sequential rounds of communication for a domain of size n. So if the domain of the point function is n, it requires log n rounds to generate the keys. Generate the keys where Alice and Bob have secret shares of the point function parameter t. Right, so neither Alice or Bob have the point function parameter directly, they just have additive secret shares of it, and then they can use this protocol to generate the DPF keys. So one of the question we ask in this work is, can we actually remove this log n rounds of interaction to set up or obtain a distributed point function? And this is inspired by the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and you'll see this why in a second. But the idea is, with Diffie-Hellman, the two parties can just swap public keys and obtain a common key k. And we're going to port this. And the advantage is that the parties can just post these keys to a public bulletin board, and then do a key exchange with any other party to obtain a common key k. And so the question, rephrasing the question a little bit, if we want to remove interaction, can we essentially have a Diffie-Hellman style protocol for DPF keys? And so this is exactly what non-interactive distributed point functions, the way we define them, is. So in particular, we want a situation where Alice and Bob will have additive shares of the point function parameter t. And without a trusted setup, we do allow a CRS, but no trusted setup that depends on this, the point function parameter t. The goal is to obtain DPF keys for the secret index that corresponds to the sum of the two individual parameters. So the corresponds to the parameter t that is secret shared between Alice and Bob. And so the idea is Alice and Bob can post their public keys to a bulletin board like before, and then derive keys ka and kb that can be used to evaluate the distributed point function. Okay, so that's the setup. And the point function will evaluate to 1 on index ta plus tb. So how do we build non-interactive distributed point functions? We'll require several ingredients. The first one is a protocol that or a primitive that we define in the paper, which is a succinct non-interactive matrix multiplication. And it's kind of a reframing of some protocols in existing works. And we will combine this with secret key homomorphic secret sharing and use some tricks to finally arrive at non-interactive DPS. So what is succinct non-interactive matrix multiplication? This is adapted from a work from Eurocrypt last year. And the idea is that it's a similar setup to Diffie-Hellman, where Alice and Bob now have matrices A and B, and they can somehow encode these matrices into public keys that they post to a bulletin board. And following, by exchanging these public keys, they can then derive secret shares of the product of the two matrices. Okay? And so if they add these two secret shares together, they get the product of their individual matrices. But the really cool part of this protocol is that the keys are going to be sublinear in size relative to the total number of entries in the matrix. So n here will denote the total size of the matrix, and the public keys are going to be sublinear. So using just this primitive already, we can kind of realize a baby version of a non-interactive distributed point function. So the trick we use is to first reinterpret the indices ta and tb using the Chinese remainder theorem to define it in a matrix form where we have ia as the row index and ja as the column index. So Alice just reinterprets her index using CRT. Bob does the same. And here L can, you can think of L as being roughly square root n. And so if we look at a concrete example, if Alice has decomposes her value ta as ja and ia, then she can define her matrix A as being the one-hot matrix with the value 1 in the corresponding row and column. And Bob, on the other hand, will do something different. He will just look at the column index and define a cyclic shift matrix relative to, based on the column value. So here in this example, the column is 0, so he just defines the cyclic shift matrix that is the identity, and then if we look at the product of these matrices, then nothing changes, so it would just be Alice's matrix. But now if Bob's column index is 1, the product matrix will be a shifted version of Alice's matrix, and so on and so forth. Right, so what we've achieved here is we can think of this as being the output of a DPF, where Bob can influence the column index, but he doesn't have the ability to influence the row index. And so ideally, if we want to reinterpret this matrix, product matrix, as a DPF output, we would need to both have, we would both need the ability for Bob to both influence the row and the column, right? So right now we only have the ability for Bob to shift the column, but not the rows. Okay. So the first problem is that this matrix multiplication protocol just shifts the columns, but not the rows. And so it's kind of like the, yeah. Okay. And so to solve this problem, we're going to introduce another primitive, which is secret key homomorphic secret sharing. So homomorphic secret sharing, just briefly, has a trusted setup where the trusted setup encrypts value x under some secret key to generate a ciphertext. And then it distributes secret shares of the secret key along with the ciphertext to the two parties. And the parties can locally evaluate a function f using just the ciphertext and their share of the key to obtain secret shares of f of x, additive secret shares of f of x. So that's homomorphic secret sharing in a nutshell. And so the first idea we have is like, okay, let's just assume we're okay with the trusted setup, even though we're not, and have the trusted setup just encrypt a cyclic shift matrix for the row, right? So Bob has the ability to cyclically shift the columns, but now let's also have an encryption of the row cyclic shift matrix. And then using this, first, Bob can still define his column shift, this cyclic shift matrix as before, and compute the row cyclic shift. But now, using this homomorphic secret sharing, they can also compute a product between the row cyclic shift matrix and Alice's matrix. And if we combine all of this together, we'd obtain the product, both the cyclic shift of the rows and the columns, which we can then reinterpret as an output of a DPF. But there's a problem here, which is who runs this trusted setup. We wanted to eliminate trusted setup in our DPF, and so now this introduces a trusted setup again, which is not good. And the second problem is that we cannot evaluate homomorphic secret sharing over secret shares. So the first output of the column shift matrix times Alice's matrix results in additive secret shares. And now we want to somehow evaluate a homomorphic secret sharing multiplication on top of secret shares, which is undefined because homomorphic secret sharing only works to evaluate a function over an encrypted ciphertext. And so this is where we use some tricks to overcome these two challenges. So the first thing to note is that Bob, the trusted setup here, is only encrypting the Bob's row shift matrix, which is something Bob already knows. So instead of having a trusted setup for this, for the homomorphic secret sharing, we can actually just let Bob run the trusted setup himself, because it doesn't involve any information that Bob does not know. So he can just generate a secret key himself, encrypt his cyclic shift matrix for the row himself, and just send these values to Alice in the same round as the non-interactive matrix multiplication public key. Okay, so that kind of solves the trusted setup problem. But we're still left with the problem that HSS is only defined over ciphertext. And here we want to compute a function that involves a ciphertext of the row shift matrix and secret shares output from the previous step. And so this is where we resort to a theorem of CMPR23, which shows that existing homomorphic secret sharing schemes from nearly all assumptions, DDH, DCR, QR, and LWE, have this ability to compute, have this property that input shares are additively homomorphic. And we can define memory shares as being this tuple of an input and the secret key times the input. So they have these two types of shares. And using these just these two properties, there exists a multiplication algorithm that takes as input an input share and a memory share and produces an additive share of the product. So it's a neat theorem. And it turns out it's exactly what we need to solve this problem of computing a multiplication between secret shares and input shares. Because now what Bob can do is, because he knows the secret key as k, he can define his column shift matrix. Instead of having 1 in the diagonals, he can just put the secret key in there. And what this means is that once they finish the product, the non-interactive matrix multiplication product, they will obtain additive secret shares of the secret key. And so we can then define this tuple that is necessary to apply the theorem of CMPR23. And so what this means is, like, now this memory share can be multiplied with an input share encrypted under homomorphic secret sharing. And what gets output is just the additive secret share, which consists of both the column shift matrix multiplied by Alice's matrix and the input share row shift matrix multiplied by the result. Okay, so if we put everything together, use CRT to decompose the indices, use the matrix multiplication protocol to compute, Alice will define her public key for the matrix multiplication protocol with the one-hot matrix she defined. Bob defines two matrices, the row cyclic shift matrix and the column cyclic shift matrix. He encrypts the row shift matrix with HSS, defines the public key to consist of both the tuple, the HSS tuple, and the matrix multiplication public key for the column shift matrix. They can then swap these two values. And because this encryption consists of a sparse matrix, in particular it consists of a Toeplitz matrix, it is compressible, and so everything now has sublinear in n communication size. So the public keys are sublinear in n. They use the non-interactive matrix multiplication protocol to compute the first part, homomorphic secret sharing to compute the second part, and we obtain this product matrix at the end. And now finally, we have to kind of go back and reinterpret this as the output of a distributed point function. And this can be done by just taking the rows of the matrix and kind of flattening them out into the evaluation of the point function on the entire domain. So we showed that prior to our work, the only way that such a protocol could be constructed was using spooky encryption, which was known from either LWE or I/O. And in this work, we showed that's possible from DCR, QR, LWE, and SXDH. And one of the big open problems here is, can we actually get better than the communication we get while still sublinear? It's n to the 2/3 sublinear, and it would be great to get something that like square root or below. So that's it. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? I think we are a little bit tight in schedule, so we probably can take the question offline.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So we'll move to the second talk, which is about watermarkable and zero-knowledge verifiable delay functions from any proof of exponentiations. So this is a joint work from Charlotta Hoffmann and Krzysztof Peterczak. So Charlotta will give the talk.
Okay, cool. Can you hear me? Great. Okay, let's start. So this talk is going to be about VDFs, which were introduced by Bonnet, Bonobins, and Fish in 2018. And the original application that the authors had in mind were distributed systems such as blockchain. However, ever since their introduction, many other applications of VDF have emerged. For example, proof systems, complexity theory, and even computational number theory. And for one of those applications, we need two special variants of VDFs. They are called watermarkable VDFs and zero-knowledge VDFs. And yeah, this is what this talk is going to be about. But before we see the results of our paper, let's introduce all the notions that we need. So we start with VDFs. The VDF is a function which takes t steps to evaluate. So that means, let's say we have any algorithm, for example, this orange monster here, that gets some input x. Then we want the algorithm to take exactly t steps to compute the result, f of x. So we don't want this to take longer than time t, but also we don't want it to be significantly faster than time t. And that should hold even if this orange monster has a lot of computing power available. Okay, and then we want this function to be efficiently verifiable. So we require that it takes only roughly log t steps to verify the result. So what does this mean? Let's say, again, we have the orange monster that has performed all the work. It has computed f of x. Then we want the orange monster to be able to send some short proof pi to a verifier, such that the verifier can efficiently check and output accept or reject. And we're also going to see this later, but I want to tell you already right now that the most practical VDFs we know today are based on repeated squaring in some special groups. So where you just take x and you raise it to the power 2 to the t. And then the corresponding proofs we call proofs of exponentiation, or short POE. And the most efficient ones are the constructions by Pieczak and Wesolowski. So those are two different constructions that have different trade-offs in terms of efficiency and assumptions. Okay, so now let's see what a watermarkable verifiable delay function is. So this is a VDF where the proof can be tied to a prover. So this orange monster, again, it has performed a lot of work and has computed this proof. And now we want this monster to be able to put its own unique watermark on the proof, so that, for example, the prover can be rewarded for all the work it has done. The security notion we need for this is called watermark unforgeability. So let's get some intuition on what this means. So what we don't want to happen is something like this. Let's say we have another monster, this blue monster here, that obtains as input x, f of x, and then a proof watermarked by the orange monster. What we don't want this monster to be able to do is take this watermark proof, just remove the watermark, and put its own watermark on it, okay? That's not good. Instead, we want something like this, that even if the blue monster obtains as input many watermarked proofs with different watermarks, still we want it to take t steps to compute a proof with its own watermark. And in the VDF paper by Wesolowski already gives the candidate construction for watermarked VDF, but unfortunately there's no security proof of this property, watermark unforgeability. And then the second notion that I want to talk about is zero-knowledge VDFs, and this is exactly what you think it is. So it's a VDF in which no information about f of x is revealed. So only the orange monster now has f of x as input, and then we adapt the proof and make it a zero-knowledge proof of knowledge of f of x. Arun, Bonneau, and Clark, they construct the first zero-knowledge VDF, which is a zero-knowledge variant of Wesolowski's VDF. And they also give the first application for not only zero-knowledge VDFs, but also watermarkable VDFs. And those applications are called short-lived proofs and signatures. So those are proofs and signatures that are valid for some time t, but after time t, they should be deniable. Okay, so now we're ready to see the contribution of our paper. So in our paper, we construct watermarkable VDFs and zero-knowledge VDFs from any proof of exponentiation in hidden order groups. So what does this mean? Well, we give the first watermarkable VDF with security proof, and our results also yield the first zero-knowledge version of Jiaxin VDF and all of its variants. Secondly, we introduce the notion of zero-knowledge proofs of sequential work, and we also give the first construction. And with this construction, we get short-lived proofs with better deniability properties than by Arun, Bonneau, and Clark. And we also remove the adaptive root assumption from their construction. Okay, and now we start with the technical overview. I already told you that the VDFs we're going to look at, they're all based on repeated squarings and POEs. So let's first see what this is. So the VDF is defined like this. F of x is just x to the 2 to the t in some hidden order group G. So note that if the group order G was known, it would be very easy to compute this. You could just take the exponent, reduce it modulo the group order, and then you just have to perform a single exponentiation in the group. However, if the group order is not known, then we don't know of any significantly faster way to compute the result than to really perform T sequential squarings. And then we already know that the corresponding proofs, they are called POEs, and they need to satisfy two properties. So first is completeness, which means that if the prover is honest, the verifier should always accept. And the second is soundness, which means that for any malicious prover strategy, if x to the 2 to the t does not equal y, then so the verifier should reject with high probability. Okay, so now let's try to construct our first watermarkable VDF. We will first look at an attempt that will not work out in the end. Okay, so let's see. We're in this setting, the prover and the verifier, and they get as input the statement x to the 2 to the t equals y. And now let's assume we have some proof of exponentiation that's interactive. And so the verifier message is just some random challenge C. Then usually if you have a POE like this, what you do is you use the Fiat-Shamir transform to make it non-interactive. So this means you replace the verifier message by a hash of the previous transcript. So here you would hash the statement and the first prover message, and you get the message C. And then the prover can send the whole proof in one go, and we need no interaction. Now, the first idea to make this construction watermarkable, which was already presented in Wesolowski's VDF paper, is to include a unique identifier in the Fiat-Shamir transformation. So instead of just hashing y and a, the prover now also includes a unique identifier, and it also sends the identifier to the verifier, and the verifier can check that everything is okay. Now, what about watermark unforgeability in this case? Well, unfortunately, it's not so easy. So we don't know how to prove it for when you use Wesolowski's POE. And even worse, it just does not hold for Jiaxin's POE. And this is because in Jiaxin's POE, already a very big, so x to some very big exponent is revealed, which could then help you recomputing a new proof. Okay, so that does not look too good, but we managed to fix this in our paper with the following construction. So over there in the corner, I have just put this idea with including the identifier because we will use it in a different way, but let's remember how it worked. And let's see our construction now. So again, we have this prover, and it gets as input x and y. Now, the main idea is that the prover should not prove correctness of this statement directly, but it should transform it with some secret into another statement, which you can then just publish the proof for it. Okay, so in more detail, we let the prover sample some small random number r, and then it computes x prime, which is x to the r, and y prime, which should be y to the r. First notice that now we also have that x prime raised to the 2 to the t equals y prime. And now, to prove the initial statement, the prover outputs this proof here. So this is a tuple, and the first two elements it contains are just x prime and y prime. That's what we have just computed. And then it includes a proof of exponentiation of x prime and y prime. And now finally, to make this a proof of the statement up there, we also need to include a proof of knowledge of the secret r. So the prover proves that in zero knowledge that it knows some r such that x to the r equals x prime and y to the r equals y prime. So this is the simple proof of some discrete log type relation. And then to watermark this construction, we use the idea we have seen before, but only on the small zero knowledge proof of knowledge. Okay, so now let's get some intuition on why this is secure, so why this satisfies watermark unforgeability. Okay, so let's again assume we have this blue monster, this adversary that wants to forge its own watermark proof. Now what this blue adversary gets as input is x, y, and also pi. So pi is what we've just seen. Now what could the blue adversary do to put its own watermark? Well, the first guess, again, would be, could it maybe remove just the orange watermark and then put its own blue watermark on the zero knowledge proof of knowledge? Well, this does not work now, right? Because this is just, because the blue monster does not know R is secret. So in particular, because we have zero knowledge property and proof of knowledge, it cannot construct a new proof that it knows R. It's just not possible. So then the next best thing would be maybe to find out R, which we show requires to prove some variant of discrete log. And so then what we show in the paper is that actually the best thing that the blue monster can do is just recompute everything from scratch, which is exactly what we want. So to be more precise, those are the assumptions that we need. So we have not seen it, but for soundness of our proof, we need the low order assumption, and then we need to assume soundness of POE and the proof of knowledge. And then for watermark unforgeability, we need zero knowledge of the proof of knowledge, we need a decisional version of the discrete log assumption, and a decisional iterated squaring assumption. Okay, and then now about our zero knowledge VDF construction, I just want to say a few words because it's very similar. It's just that here the orange monster cannot publish Y, and so it also needs to prove knowledge of Y. Right, so we include Y in the proof of knowledge, which unfortunately makes the proof a bit more complicated. So in our paper, we only managed to construct a protocol like this, where the challenge space is 0, 1. And this is because we're now working in hidden order groups, where sometimes those Sigma protocols are a bit more complicated. And if you are familiar with Sigma protocols, you know that this is not good for practicality, right? Because now you need lambda repetitions to achieve soundness, and so also the size of the proof increases by a factor of lambda. But then what we observe is that for the application that we have in mind, which are the short-lived proofs and signature, we don't really need a full-fledged zero-knowledge VDF. So we're also okay with just the zero-knowledge proof of sequential work. So this would mean we drop the requirement of knowledge of Y, and again, the prover only proves that it knows some R. So yeah, this means we don't have any guarantee that the prover really computed this first initial result. So maybe the prover does not even know the real Y, but we know, again, we still have the guarantee that it knows y to some exponent. And in particular, we have the guarantee that it has computed some delay function, so it has performed the t steps. And yeah, for our application, this is enough. And so there, again, we have a practical proof, thankfully. Okay, to sum up, in our paper, we construct the first watermarkable VDF with security proof, the first zero-knowledge VDF for general PoE, and then the first zero-knowledge proof of sequential work. And what about efficiency? So let's look at the proof sizes. Well, for the watermarkable VDF construction, we only increase the size of the PoE by 4 group elements. We've already seen that, unfortunately, for the zero-knowledge VDF, we increase it by 2 + 2 to the lambda elements. And then, if you're okay with the zero-knowledge proof of sequential work, we go back to an increase of only 4 group elements. And then what we show in our paper is how to obtain short-lived proofs from the zero-knowledge proof of sequential work. And yeah, so with this, we get some better deniability properties for the short-lived proofs created by Arun, Bonneau, and Clark. And a nice open problem, of course, would be to also reduce the proof size of the zero-knowledge VDF, because even though in our application we're okay with proof of sequential work, there might be some applications where you really need the function property. So, and yeah, it would just be nice to also have a more practical construction for this. Yeah, and that's it. Now I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions from the audience?
Can you give more intuition about why we cannot get bigger challenge spaces for the zero-knowledge proof?
Okay. Let's see. So let's go back here. So the problem is that it just gets more complicated. So now instead of only proving proof of knowledge of R, we also need to keep the Y secret. So basically we need a protocol that at the same time is a proof of same discrete lock for 2 statements and also a proof of a root essentially or of a base Y. So yeah, and I don't. I'm not sure how to say it in simple terms, but it's basically proving this root. This is the problem in hidden order groups, and yeah, let's talk about it later. I don't know how to say it in simple words, but yeah.
Is there more questions?
You said the computation has to take t steps. So what's the definition of a step?
Yeah, so in our case, a step is 1 squaring, right? So this really depends on your VDF, but so for us, it's always, so for example, 1 group multiplication. That's what we count as a step.
I have a general question. So do you know any construction beyond doing this square? Is there any construction from LWE, for example?
VDF for VDFs?
Yeah.
Yes, there is a VDF construction by Julie Malavolta and Russell Lai, and I think also someone else that I don't remember right now, but yes, they exist. But as far as I know, there's no zero-knowledge variant of this and no watermarkable variant.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
If there's no further questions, so let's thank the speaker. So now we move to the last talk of this sessions. So the talk is about higher virtuosity attacks on small RSA subgroup decision problems. So this is a joint work from Xiaopeng Zhao, Zheng Fu Cao, Xiaolei Dong, Zhu Sun Liu. So Xiaopeng will give the talk.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Xiaopeng Zhao from Donghua University. This is the joint work with Zheng Fu Cao, Xiaolei Dong, and Zhu Sun Liu. my talk is organized into the following 5 parts. Security two-party comparison, known as Yost millionaire's problem, has been a fundamental challenge in privacy-preserving computation. The basic solution to this problem is based on Yost garbled circuit, and another significant approach to secure computation is based on homomorphic encryption. It is more straightforward to implement, and it has a lower overall computation cost. Officially, first constructed a secure comparison of 2 numbers using a Boolean circuit based on the Zoll homomorphic Goodweiser mechanical system. And later, Damgard et al. Enhanced this approach. And recently, inspired by the strong RC subgroup assumption, which is related to high residuosity assumptions proposed by Gross and the DGK comparison protocol. Carlton et al. Constructed a protocol that efficiently compares 2 encrypted integers through the nearly direct application of the homomorphism on a single encrypted value. And later, Boss et al. Improved the CK protocol by awarding 1 round induced by the plaintext equality test. In this talk, we studied the small RC subgroup decision problems, which underpins the security of both the CK and BST protocols. Our main contribution is extending the classical quadratic residuosity attack on the DDH problem to higher residuosity attacks scenarios. Using this generalized attack, we break the small RC subgroup decision problems when the public prime base P0 is small. For example, P0 is less than 100, in which case both the CK and the BST protocols achieve optimal overall performance. And it may serve as a resource for future protocol designers working with RC-type problems. Let me first introduce the concept of RC quintuple. It is a quintuple NP0 DGU, where U is an integer such that the discrete logarithm problem is computationally infeasible in a subgroup of Zn star whose order is a prime of B less U. For example, 128-bit security level requires U equals 256. P0 is a prime of B less than U. D is an integer greater than 1. N equals P times Q is a composite integer with computationally infeasible factorization, where the primes P and Q are constructed as this form. Satisfying the following conditions, PS and QS are primes of B less U. PT and QT are primes with B lengths different from U, and PS, QS, PT, QT are pairwise distinct. G is an element in Z star which has order P0 to the D modulo P and modulo Q. Our attack on both protocols mainly utilizes the leakage of G. It does not seem easy to compute G when the unless you know the factor of N. Both protocols define the small RC subgroup decision problems, but it's not difficult to show that if there exists a PBT distinguisher being able to solve the SR-SDP with light advantage, then one can solve the tilde SR-SDP in polynomial time with non-negligible advantage. Next, we mainly focus on the hardness of SR-SDP, which is to say that given an RC quintuple, NP0 DGU distinguish the 2 uniform distributions over the set of quadratic residues in Zn star and over the set of x to the P0 to the D times PT times Qt, with x belongs to the QRN respectively. Let us first review that the DDH problem is not hard in ZP star. Given the tuple G to the A, G to the B, T in the DDH problem, one can compute the Lagrange symbol of t modulo p. If t equals g to the c, then the symbol equals 1 happens with probability half. And while if t equals g to the a times b, then the symbol equals 1 happens with probability 3/4. The key insight here is the quadratic residue symbols leaks the structure of ZP star. Next, I will give a quartic residuosity attack on the SR-SDP when P0 equals 2. Let pi belongs to this set be a prime element. Here, Zi means the ring of Gauss integers. Then there exists a unique character chi pi maps from the unit group of the quotient ring of Zi by the principal ideal generated by pi to the non-zero complex numbers of order 4, such that this equation holds. And for alpha belongs to Zi, we define the quartic residue symbol of alpha modulo pi by this formula. And just like the Jacobi symbol, suppose that beta has this factorization, and we can, for alpha belongs to Zi, we can define the quartic Jacobi symbol alpha of alpha to the modulo beta by this formula. To compute the quartic Jacobi symbol, we need the quartic reciprocity law, which is first proposed by Gauss and later proven by Jacobi and Eisenstein. This law, together with its supplement, gives an efficient method for computing the quartic Jacobi symbol in big O of cube of log n time. There are even faster algorithm with the quadratic time complexity. And here is a discrete D. D is given as you put an RC quintuple and a sample X. D first compute H equals G to the P0 to the D over 4 modulo N. And we can see that the square of H is congruent to -1 modulo N. Then D computes rho equals the GCD of N and H minus I by the Euclidean algorithm in Zi. And finally, D computes C equals the quartic Jacobi symbol of X modulo rho by applying the quartic reciprocity and its supplement. If C equals 1, then it outputs yes. Otherwise, it outputs no. The main observation is that if X is of the form y to the P0 to the D times PT times Qt with Y belongs to QRN, then we must have the symbol C equals 1, since D is greater than 1 and the two GCDs are 1. Let's look at an example. Assume that the parameters of the SR-SDP are set as in table 1. D first calculates H and rho, and next it can efficiently calculate the symbol without knowing the factorization of N or rho. Here are procedures for calculating the symbol. The algorithms repeats the following 3 steps until the modulus becomes 1. The first step is make the modulus of quartic residue symbol primary. And the second one is calculate the remainder of a primary when divided by an element in Zi. And the third one is remove factors of 1 plus I and apply the general quartic reciprocity law and its supplement. And we show that the above distinguisher can solve the SR-SDP with advantage half. We next describe a higher residuosity attack on the SR-SDP when P0 is is an odd prime. Let K be a number field, and let frag P be a prime ideal in the ring of integers in K, which is and frag P is prime to an integer L, which is greater or equal than 1. We have the following congruent. Suppose that zeta L belongs to K. We define the L's power residue symbol alpha of alpha modulo frag P as follows. If alpha belongs to frag P, then the symbol equals 0. Otherwise, it is a unique L's root of unity such that the following congruent holds. Suppose that frag A has this factorization. For alpha belongs to frag OK, we can define the generalized L's power residue symbol as this formula. Crumer's reciprocity law is crucial to the computation of power residue symbols, especially when the adjoining zeta L is non-Euclidean. For example, L is less or equal than 13. Table 3 presents a list of references for the relevant algorithm. The general case of computing higher power residue symbols was tackled by de Boer, and the resulting algorithms are probabilistic. For degrees around 100, the computation of one single power residue symbol might last for several weeks. We now give a general high reducity attack on the SRSDP when P0 is with a small odd prime by using the power residue symbol. Given an RC quintuple and a sample X, first compute H equals G to the P0 to the D-1 modulo N, whose order is P0 in Z star. Let K equals Q adjoining zeta P0. Then the prime decomposition of P in frag OK can be obtained. And also for Q. Next, this sets frag A equals frag P1 times frag Q1. Finally, decompose the symbol C equals the P0's power residue symbol of X modulo A, frag A. A double output yes if C equals 1 and no otherwise. Combining Lestra's non-Euclidean algorithm for and algorithms for higher power residue symbols, we can give a distinguisher D here. The main observation is that if X is of the form y to the P0 to the D times Pt times Qt, with y belongs to the set QRN, then we must have the C equals 1. We show that the above distinguisher D can solve the SRSDP problem with significant advantage, which is P0 minus 1 over P0. To conclude, this talk is mainly a description of high residuosity attack against two efficient two-party comparison protocols recently proposed by Carty et al. And Boss et al. And we also offer recommendations for precluding these attacks in our paper. Future work will investigate whether a more efficient algorithm exists for computing power residue symbols modulo a two-element representation ideal, and analyze other power residue type assumptions, such as the gap 2 to the k residuosity assumption, which underpins the security of the Joan-Libert crypto system. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any questions?
If you can distinguish, you cannot compute.
You cannot compute anything. It's only about distinguishing. It doesn't
I think the question is that whether your attack is only on the decisional assumption or...
Does it imply something for a computational assumption? Does it help you to compute some discrete logs in some RSA subgroup, something that is not right? Is that true? The algorithm is only a distinguisher. It does not solve a computational problem.
You mean which attack? Which attack?
All your attacks.
Uh,
Because you presented only distinguishing. And I wonder whether this is related to computational problems as well. Maybe we can take it offline.
Thank you. We can talk offline.
Any more questions? Okay, if there's no further questions, and we thank all the speakers for these sessions, and maybe we can take the question offline, and thank you all.
Thank you all.